Okay, welcome to the 10th letter in the series of Copperplate Majuscules. This is the letter J. As usual, I have my oblique holder with a Leonard EF Principal nib and watercolor ink. The J letter is a big letter, so if you're working with 5mm X heights, please be prepared for a letter that is 25mm tall. The J extends to your second ascender line and also to the first descender line underneath the baseline. So it means that the universal line of beauty, which we are starting with, is a very long one. So if where am I in frame? I'm right here. Okay, so I'm going to start with my universal line of beauty, bearing in mind that it is a lot longer. This is because you need a lot of room for a J. You have to fit in a longer top bar and also a bottom section that curves on itself, and also to distinguish it from an I. The size is normally the easiest way. There we go. Is normally the easiest way to distinguish it from an I. All right, so in a J, which I'm not particularly happy with mine, but I'll go through why. Let me just clean that off really quickly. Okay, and I'll grab a colored pen right here so we can analyze a little bit. So, as usual, I've got my universal line of beauty right in here. This is over this is over longer than the expected. So my middle section of my universal line of beauty is pretty much almost 3 X heights tall. So I should have this section to roughly this section being flat to the slant line, with the top and bottom ways being, I can do it there, not a problem. So with the top and bottom ways being parallel. So this top section right here is not parallel to the slant line. It's slowly used to become parallel horizontally. And the same with the other one. The last 5mm, or the last X height that you've got, is not meant to be parallel to the slant line. It's meant to slowly turn away from the slant line and become horizontal. So where it touches your line, you should be able to continue that line on straight. Okay, if you curve it back on yourself, that's absolutely fine, as long as wherever you are hitting it, you would then be ready to carry on that line horizontally. Okay, so you can see on my J here that that's what I've attempted to do. I also have curved it back around on itself. You do have a large amount of open space on this side right here, and there are many ways of filling it. You do need on a J to have something that curls back on itself. It does not have to be a flourished area, but quite commonly that is what happens. So for example, I think I'm still in frame if I do another one. If I do one here, roughly, yeah, okay. So I could do a further one here. So I could keep that quite small and I could drop down a flourished top bar right here, not a problem. Like I could add a terminus dot here if I wanted, and that would still be read as a J. There we go. So on here you have this large space that can be flourished. When you flourish the bottom, the only area that you cannot go into and cross over is this long line of universal beauty. If you cross that line within the area where it is parallel to the slant line, then you're going to lose the legibility of your letter. So for example, if I do one where I'm crossing at the wrong place, then you'll be able to see. I fit it there, just all right. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So we could take something and loop it over, which is absolutely fine. And then we could take something like this and put it like that. You are going to lose the legibility. Even though I've flourished areas here, it's starting to look with this crossover like that's a deliberate crossover. So to just put that into normal letters, it's going to look like this. So it's going to read closer to an F than as a J. Okay, so you cannot touch or bisect the area which is parallel to the slant line. Okay, that does not mean that you can't cross over yourself. I've seen this kind of flourish done quite a lot with a J, but it needs to happen lower down so that this area is untouched. Okay. All right, we also have a crossbar in here, and I can show you why I'm not so happy with mine. Is that when you have any sort of flourish that involves like either an infinity symbol or an 8 shape, it means that the sides should be roughly equal to each other. So when you've got, let me put that a little bit closer to the middle, there we go. So this is my slant line, that should be in the middle, mine is not, that's why I'm not very happy with it. And I've also got that this area right here is much smaller, noticeably smaller than this area right here. They should be parallel. I think I can fit that up here in terms of size. So if I put, can I fit that up there? If I move it slightly, there we go. So should be the same. Okay, so I'm not very happy with that. I would be happier with it if there was a reason that this was bigger, that I needed to swing wider to accommodate some kind of flourish in here, but that wasn't what I intended to do. I've just eyeballed that poorly. Okay, we've also got a contained oval in the bottom, which is very easy to see. So that's right here. That should be coming up from your baseline. We should always be containing an oval. There is a second one right here. So both of these ovals, I could just put that in solid so we can see it a bit easier. So we've got an oval right here with another one in the middle. They should both be on the slant line. We've talked about this before, but if it is not on the slant line, then it will look like your letter is leaning somewhere. Okay. And you can see from these, I mean, eventually you start to get a feeling for it. So sometimes when I'm analysing my own letters, I'll realise that I've done something and it's felt right at the time, but I haven't realised why until I've started analysing. So eventually you do sort of intuit what letters are supposed to look like. So I thought, oh, my flourish is a little like far over. It's not quite bisecting that oval, that larger oval. So my line right here is more on the 2/3 over line, but yet the halfway point is on the third. So I've almost divided this space into thirds by accident, I assure you. But it's a good way of looking at what you're doing and either finding out why it looks right or why it doesn't look right. So I highly recommend it. If we go down to this one right here, you can see that I've swung wider out here to try and match the contained oval, which is here. And I've roughly done that, at least a modicum more successfully than my first attempt. And I've had to swing a little bit wider to accommodate this flourish further down, but in terms of distance from the key feature of the J, I've got it roughly equidistant, at least better than I did before. Okay, I want to talk about this flourish right here as well, because I have seen it a lot, particularly with a J, and I want to explain how to make it work. So I hit my baseline a lot sooner than anticipated, so this should be much rounder. It should bounce off of the baseline. It shouldn't hit the baseline and then flatline and then come back up, so it should bounce, but I've made mine a little bit low. When you circle back up, you obviously have a contained oval in here that we can see, but you are bisecting that oval as close as you can, so this line is roughly cutting my oval in half, which will go through the middle of my my loop here as well. So it should be bisecting. So if I write that right here, middle of loop, I'm still in frame. There we go. Should bisect the oval. Okay, so then you should have roughly equal amounts of space to the left and to the right. Okay, that will dictate obviously how wide your loop is. So a balanced loop should be one, if I just do a, put it in frame first, that would be helpful. So if you have a contained oval in here, it means that the middle is going to be somewhere here, just eyeballing it. So it means that however much you turn over here, you should be coming back up roughly on the same width away. Okay. I've seen other calligraphers explain this in terms of train tracks or making a donut with a hole in the middle. So if we're done with my colored pen, there it is. So I've seen it before where they're saying, okay, so this line right here should be roughly parallel, at least in places, to this line right here, so that we've got an equal amount of space either side for the most part, and if you can, get it right to the bottom. So it should look like a donut with a hole in the middle, or like equal train tracks running around a tight turn. That's how I've seen that explained before. You've got exactly the same happening up here with this kind of flourish. So I've got from here to the flourish and from the flourish to the bottom being roughly the same distance away from the middle of this loop. My loop points ideally horizontally. Okay, so my loop is not along the slant line, it points horizontally, so it's parallel to the guidelines. And my contained ovals are also going to point horizontally. So my loop does, my contained oval does here, and my second contained oval also points horizontally. Okay. Ideally, when you are flourishing, you should not have any loops, especially in a J as well, because it's so hard to balance and make it look correct. It will also depend on what letters you've got after, but especially in a J, so loops need... Am I still in frame? Okay, we can fit one more word in to point Not perfect, there we go. Need to point either along the slant line or horizontal. Okay, that's a general rule of thumb when you're flourishing, but I think you can't help but flourish in a J. Even a standard J involves loops, so it's similar to an F in that way, or a C, where you're containing ovals the whole time, and it needs to look balanced. If I have a look at this one up here, I just stop putting things onto there. There we go. If I have a look at this one up here, I've obviously got a contained oval right here. So that's my contained oval. And that is pointing along the slant line. I've got another contained oval somewhere here, roughly. When you're looking at ovals, it's the same as when you're looking at a minuscule of O. So although your ovals can be any size, like down here, I've got 2 medium-sized ovals and a small one. You can change the size of your loops, and that's going to make your flourishing look more dynamic. But when you're looking at ovals of any size, the proportion should be, okay, so if we put this right here, so proportion, I fit that in there, yeah. Yeah, I'm good, okay. Should be height of your oval. So the long way, whether it's a horizontal oval or whatever, just means that you're way along here. Okay, so the longest distance should be 3 times the width. That's approximate. If you go and have a look at professional copper plate, just have a look at a minuscule O or an oval, and the rule should apply. Every calligrapher is obviously different, but the O dictates a lot. So it dictates your spacing, it dictates the height of your minuscules, and it also dictates the amount of space you have to play with in majuscules. Majuscules are much, much bigger, and you have to balance a lot of different areas, and the O will help you do that. So you can see on here, I've roughly, I mean, mine's slightly under. In fact, I think this one's closer, but this one's definitely too wide. But I'm trying to eyeball my ovals to be 3 times as tall as they are wide. Okay, so looking at a J, it can be done in one stroke. So we could go from the top all the way down, and some people do that. I prefer to do just the line of universal beauty first, so that I know I don't usually stop here. So I usually do my line of universal beauty straight into a flourish on the bottom. I can leave it as a simple flourish like this and then work on it later if I need to. And then I'll go and balance whatever area I've got left at the top. Okay, that's usually the way that I do it, but there's no real right answer here. I would ideally want to redo this crossbar here. We should have also one of the where can I fit that in? I'm running out of space here. Maybe I can fit it in on the left, actually. There we go. We should have also one of the basic strokes included in the crossbar, and I'll show you where. So we have a stroke that looks like this included in the crossbar, and the way that this works is that if you follow along in the middle, which should be horizontal, I've obviously eyeballed it, but we should have the same amount of negative space above it, I'll just colour that in really quick, versus the amount of negative space underneath it. We should not have an imbalanced flow across your crossbar. Okay, so you can see, where have I done it particularly all right? Here, I've tried to eyeball. It's hard. I write sideways, so my paper is 90 degrees. That's obviously personal preference, but the bottom of my loop over here is actually a little bit lower, so mine's a little imbalanced here. You'll obviously have to swing wider if you're including something lower down, but you can see that I don't go any further above where the tops of mine are, and I've got a guideline to help me with that. Okay, so I can literally draw a straight line in between them. Okay, I think that that's roughly it for a J. I know that that's quite a lot, but it is quite a large letter, and there's a lot of choices that can be made with a J, particularly to differentiate it from an I and to stop it looking like an F. Okay, please do let me know if you're flourishing along, or if you're trying to construct your own versions of letters. There's a million different combinations that can be done. You certainly don't need to just stick to the ones that I'm doing. Take the rules as rules of thumb, and just try to apply them to new ways and formats. Let me know. Feel free to send me anything, should you want to. I'm happy to have a look at anything. But aside from that, I think that's about it for a J. Have a good weekend.